Not the immediate. Okay. Hello, hello. Welcome to Life's a Beautiful Thing, where we discuss the beautiful lives of beautiful people and the beautiful work they do. I am a guest today, but I will be doing the interviewing. My name is Amanda Hill, and I am going to be interviewing Xavier Jones today. But before we get into it, we're going to do a little shout out of our sponsors, which include, let me get my notes, House Lawn Care. You can receive great landscaping and lawn services from House Lawn Care at 313 632 0483. He actually does my lawn. And then we have My Place Creative Studio on, that's where we are recording live here in this beautiful studio. And that is located 3850 2nd Street in Wayne, Michigan, 48198. So please feel free to reach out to My Place Creative Studio for any of your podcasting needs. And we'll go ahead and get started.
Hey.
Hello, hello. Xavier Jones, the the inspiration behind Life's a Beautiful Thing, the podcaster. I'm like, not sure what is the title of a person who runs a podcast.
I hate to say it, but it's podcaster.
Okay.
The base term of it.
All right. They haven't come anything more creative than that, and that's
Nah.
just fine. Well, welcome, Xavier Jones. Would you like to introduce yourself today? Or yeah, well, let's tell the people who you are, what you do, and how we came to be in this beautiful place doing your podcast.
Okay, so thank you, Amanda. I am Xavier Jones, like you said before. I am a writer, a journalist, a photographer. Just a media person is what I went to school for with my undergrad. It's what I spent most of my time doing in high school, just staying close to the TV production program. From there, that brought me, kind of had a few twists and turns in the journey, but it ultimately brought me back down to a media space. With that being said, I wrote a lot of everything, books, movies, scripts, just a little bit of everything. I have a very deep resume when it comes to writing. I started uh, Life's a Beautiful Thing a long time ago, maybe in 2016, 17, with just some friends of mine. Back in that era, I wasn't too keen on being in front of the camera. So my mindset was, I can put everybody else in front of the camera and, do everything behind the scenes. That just turned into people not being as reliable as I needed them to be. No diss to them. People get busy and people have to do things. And I kind of took a step back because I don't want to be in front of the camera. And after all of the interviews and me stepping out to the places I've stepped to, I figured it was time for me to just stop being such a scaredy cat and do my own interviews in front of people on camera.
Wow. Okay. So it started off as a podcast, Life's a Beautiful Thing?
More like something like a podcast, more like a YouTube video. It was just honestly just turned the camera on my friends and asked them some questions. So it was all still me asking questions, uh, just so I can. That'll be the premise of the show. My question answer asking.
Okay. So you were on the early side of the podcasting journey. Sounds like before it really blew up and we had all these big names in podcasts.
Yeah, if I would have kept going from then, could have been a different story now. But yeah, I did start when I started when it started.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. And I've noticed that you seem to like to interview a lot of artists, and it sounds like You do a great deal of artistry yourself between the journalism and the photography, the writing. What makes you want to focus on artists in this podcast?
I believe few different answers to that. First, I believe that artists have good stories to tell. Artists isn't necessarily looked at as an essential job for various reasons. There's no instant return on it as far as if you were doing what can be considered an essential job. And it's fun too. So people don't like it when you have fun and make money and make an honest living of it. So artistry is as a it can be taboo sometimes. But I think those people have great stories to tell. Specifically, the artists that I picked, I know they have great stories to tell because each person I have a story with them. Um, every person I interviewed, from Jamil to Kane to T Barb to Cliff to Kelly to Tanika, we all have shared a moment together. Very important moments I've had growing up that shaped the show, that shaped the person that I am, that would end up shaping Life's a Beautiful Thing.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's very interesting. And what inspires you as an interviewer? Like, what are you wanting to draw out of people when you bring them on the show?
I want to draw out themselves. I want people to become a little bit more comfortable in talking honest about themselves. That's not too heavy or them beating themselves up because it's hard for people to give themselves praise for whatever reason. And I want people to know that this is a place where you can praise yourself, where you can tell people the good things you've done. You can tell people your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, the things you want to do but haven't done yet. And most people just aren't used to being genuinely interviewed because, like I said, with the podcast spaces and the media game, how's it been? In I'm gonna say just say the past 10 years, a lot of things haven't been kosher and genuine. It's been conceived with a plan or a gimmick to generate revenue or to generate, personal profit and gain. And of course, I want my own personal profit and gain, but I don't want to do that off the back of anybody. I'd rather do that doing what I do now, which is telling stories.
That's a beautiful thing. And I'm going to use that actually as a segue because I forgot to shout myself out as we came into the space. And so I will go ahead and quickly do that. Again, my name is Amanda Hill. I use she and her pronouns, and I am a healing justice practitioner. And what that means for me is I do some work around conflict transformation. I also am a Reiki practitioner, which is a healing modality that involves the laying on of hands and basically channeling universal life force energy, chi, or ki, to my clients, which helps to clear up any energetic blockages that they might have going on, and allows people to tap into their own ability to heal themselves. When you kind of get that stuck energy out of the way, then that's what the body is designed to do anyway. So that's a little bit about me. I also make rose water, I do emotional support, all sorts of different things in the healing justice realm. And now we'll get back to the Life's a Beautiful Thing podcast, who has been shouting out Motor City Mobile Wellness, which I'm a part of, and also my own business, Enchanted Rose, under which I make the rose water. It's very delightful smelling. You can hit me up at 313-799-2257 to reach out with any interest about that or any interest in booking services. But we'll get back to the interview and talk about where are we going with this? What feels natural? My segue threw me off a little bit. I've noticed that you are a really great interviewer. So, I'm going to try to live up to your standards here. And actually, what makes a great interviewer? That's a question.
Being comfortable. You have to be comfortable as an interviewer to make your interviewee comfortable. I couldn't come to anybody shaking and twitching and being nervous because they gonna think I don't want to talk to this guy because he don't know what the fuck he talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just didn't want to go in that direction. I think journalistic integrity is my biggest thing. So I just want to come from the heart. I want to use my professionalism as my catalyst. I'm not asking, I might ask a crazy question, but I'm not asking those kind of crazy questions. And we all know whatever those crazy questions are, we see them every day. Um,
I don't think I do know. I'm curious. What do you mean by that?
the classic, what's your body count? Um, the 50-50 conversation. Expectations in dating. Things that are apparent bait during the past COVID, that little lockdown era. And, era shortly. And after that, we didn't have a choice. Like, we kind of just consumed whatever, whoever felt like putting out. So if they putting out bait engagement and we sitting at the house because we can't leave the house anyway, well, I don't got shit else to do. Let's watch these people argue about something kind of stupid, and then let's sit back and read the comments about how everybody feels about it. And that's not where I wanted to go with this. I think that's cheap. Mm. I said I want to really lead the space with a genuine journalistic connection, which has stopped happening nowadays. You can kind of tell it's kind of being phased out for whatever reason.
Okay. So you're not interested in the gender wars and the rage baiting, that sort of cheap engagement, and you're wanting to, it sounds like, get more about what's really going on inside of people. So that's really interesting to hear. And what do you hope to come from this podcast? What do you hope that people take away from Life's a Beautiful Thing?
I would like for people to believe that there's beauty in everybody's story, from white, black, short, tall, gay, straight, trans, whatever the case may be. I'm not really turning down. I'm not gonna say turning down. I pick who comes to the show in this moment, but I pick everybody who I believe has a great story to tell, and I believe we all as humans have a great story to tell. Even if it's somebody you don't like, they still might have a story to tell. And I'm sure out of everybody I interviewed, including myself, somebody got an enemy or somebody who don't like somebody. Despite them having that, affinity for that person, that doesn't stop that person from having a good story to tell. And I just know that we all do. And it takes the right person to get that person to tell that story.
Mm-hmm. What makes a good story? You're an author, you're a writer. I think you also maybe tell stories through photography. What makes a good story?
A solid beginning, middle, and end. That isn't necessarily a complicated thing. You just know where the thing starts and it has a clear end. You leave people feeling something, which isn't, like you said, that cheap engagement. I'm not feeling angry because such and such is talking about such and such topic online. You feel moved. You feel like you learned something about yourself and about the world. So I've been just doing interviews in journalism for a long time. Next year actually marks my 10-year anniversary at where I'm at now. And I get this a lot, and I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm not gonna say a lot. I've gotten it more times than I would have assumed I've gotten it. Someone says, "Hey, that article made me cry," and this is just like a newspaper article, which is also holding on. Print media is holding on for dear life. And to hear people say like, "No, I've cried when I've read this piece about you." I pat myself on the back because it's moving, and so those aren't, you know, triggering to nobody's trauma or nothing like that. I'm not talking about somebody ain't shit baby daddy or the girl that hurt their feelings a long time ago. Um, Giving you real profiles of real people in real situations that we as people, can honestly relate to.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. So you mentioned you were with where you are for the past 10 years. Where is that if you're able to
I
shout it
can
out?
say right now I am with the Telegram newspaper. It is a black owned newspaper, a black woman owned newspaper out of River Rouge, Michigan. Shout out to Miss Gina. Mm, I've been working with her for about 10 years. She actually gave me my first um the first time I was ever published was with her. That was my senior year of high school. Teen Coalition days. I was about to graduate, having the senioritis, and wasn't really interested in like doing anything. I'm a senior. I'm about to graduate, and I know I'm about to graduate. If anything, I got extra credit, so I don't have to take the same amount of classes everybody else got. So I was like, even if I was to fail everything right now, I'm still graduating. Um, and they pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, we want you to write this article for the Telegram." And I halfway understood the concept of it, but they were just like, "Do it, do it, do it, do it." And it's funny now. The people that know me, the paper was about drug use and abuse and drug use in teens and whatnot, which I was a teen at the time, so it worked. Um, and I got published there. And that was maybe 2010 or 2011. Um, and from there, I went to school and found other things to do, and got shortly directed back into journalism and media. And once I finished school at Eastern in 2015, I got with a program that essentially allowed me to be paid for my work at the newspaper without her actually having to pay me. Um, and that just turned into me having office space there and having the key to the building and being able to use the space how I wanted to use it.
Very cool. Very cool. So what kinds of media are you interested in moving into now, either with the Telegram or outside of it?
I have to contain myself because my instant answer was everything. Because I do have such a, I like telling stories. So, it can be so many different genres of story that I can just make up right there, and it don't be a bad story. So I have to keep myself contained so I don't branch out too much and don't get nothing done. So right now with the Telegram, we are working on how to make it a little bit more digital. Myself, Cliff, and Kelly. So that's the plan because it's print media. Like I said, it's an unfortunate truth that print media is dying. It's holding on. Any piece of print media is holding on as much as it can, for various reasons. But the fact that they're still holding on means that they're doing something right. But we want to transition to a more online focused model where we're kind of going live on the scene and making these news clips and news stories digital on the Telegram YouTube page, Telegram Facebook page, Telegram Instagram page. I learned from an interaction at the NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists, where I've met a few people this past year that have a lot more skin in the game and knowledge of journalism and media than myself, how you can win an Emmy and whatnot. And I end up going to the Emmys this year. I helped out. I volunteered, show my face and gather some information so I can bring it back home. And the process is, just as much as a process as anything else. It's not complicated. You're gonna pay your fees like you gotta pay your fees for everything else, and they're gonna give you a responsibility and a duty like every other place is going to give you. And from that, you are eligible to submit your work for, an Emmy. And part of that is a YouTube page. That might be like one of the things that makes it eligible. So if this news source has this medium, it'll be eligible. Whatever we produce on there can be eligible for an Emmy, and that's a goal of mine with the Telegram is for the Telegram to win an Emmy. A little old newspaper out in River Rouge. They win an Emmy. It's just an unfound thing. For myself, I'm writing on too many books that need to be finished already. Shout out to my editor, Michaela. She digs her foot in my ass every time we talk about it, but she is not wrong, so I don't argue with her. This book is on page like 300, and I need to get it done. Um, that's to help me push my own self as an independent author amongst the independent journalism. I have a lot of comic books and comic strips like that wrote up. Said me and Rick are working on that. Just to broaden the medium for both of us. Eric is a really incredible artist, and I know I said it so many times when I talked to him, but I said it because it's true. Like he really knows what he's doing, and he is a good person for me to work with. And we get together, we talk. So the last time I seen him, despite this situation, we still talk business, figure things out. Clothes. So I got Rick different clothes designs for him. That would tell a different story in a way. Subjective story because it's a shirt. It'll be an image with maybe 4 or 5 handful of words, and that image and that handful of words mean different things to different people. Um, and the podcast, of course. So this is technically the prequel to the episodes. I interviewed everybody, and I thought it'd be a good idea if I were to be interviewed, so I can give the audience a prequel of the show.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what, maybe this isn't a question to ask, but what does a prequel mean to you in terms of a podcast? I've never seen a podcast prequel before. Like, how did you come to that?
I didn't want people to walk in blind, so in this regard, just wanted people to know what was coming up. For the most part, everybody I interview has their own audience, but everybody knows me. Um, I'm the mutual part of everybody for the most part. So I wanted you to hear from the horse's mouth about what you are going to see. And even, like I said, explain my story, explain how everything came to be from, these beautiful people that I've come to enjoy through my life.
Beautiful. And let's see, I think we have a little bit of time to talk about some of the folks that you've already interviewed or to set the stage, so to speak, about who's coming. I know that there has been a poet, a comedian, a visual artist. We've had other journalists, a couple other journalists on the scene, a musical artist. Yeah, you got a real mixed bag. Am I missing anyone? Or is there anything you want to elaborate on about these people that you've come to share their stories?
Yeah, of course. So like I said, I have a mixed bag of different artists just because of me being a journalist. I've had to go to a lot of different spaces to get that story and bring that information back home. And because of that, it's given me the ability to blend in a lot of different rooms and meet those different people. And I can start with Cliff and Kelly. Because this is all essentially about journalism. So a year or two ago, we went to the NNPA conference in Nashville, National Newspaper Publishers Association. And it's essentially the black press. It's it's a lot of small, independently black owned newspapers from across the country. And the story goes we were supposed to fly down. Delta messed up. A lot of people don't like it when I say that, as Delta had a little mishap and just made me give up on the airplane system in general. I take whatever flight I can fly. I can take whatever flight is gonna fly out. So Delta, it was me, Clifton, Kelly, Miss Wilson, and there's another reporter, Renee. So it was the five of us. Shout out to Miss Wilson because her plan was to, pay for everything, get us down there so we can get started. Flight didn't work out. We rode around in the airport, and then it was time to get a rental and drive down there. Um, I guess me and Cliff were instantly like, let the women just chill, let them lay back and relax. Like we'll take over the driving responsibilities. And in that moment, we kind of, as a team, we were moving through the airport and plans were changing, goals were changing, and the teamwork from that moment was real nice to me. How we was all just changing shit up on the fly, and we didn't have a choice. Like we couldn't complain, we couldn't sit back and whine too much. At the end of the day, we might have missed this opening reception or whatever was coming up first, but we have to get in this car and drive down to Nashville. And say Cliff drove first. So I sat up and talked to him whole time while he was driving, and we talked and got close and cool like that. And it was time for me to drive, which means that now he got to sit up and listen to me for a little bit. But I think he fell asleep. I was the only person up that whole time. I just couldn't sleep when he was driving, and then it was time for me to drive. So I was up that whole 8 hours from Detroit to Nashville. But said with that 8 hours, I got to talk to Cliff a lot and learn a lot about him. And went to the conference, and so me and Cliff was roommates at the hotel, and Kelly was in and out of our room just off. We can all relate to each other, and it was just like a good trip. We walked down downtown Nashville together. And we really like bonded as journalists who want the same thing, who have the common goal, who all want to keep this particular publication circulating. I said with Chanel, we work together. Chanel is the poet. I said she said I look mean. I'll come to this job, and it's a job. It's not like I put a lot of passion into it. So when it's time for us to sit at these meetings, it's not too many other black people, not too many young people at that. So I go and I just, I show up. And she said that, like, man, you look mean. Like, I don't know if I can talk to you. So she's pretty much like, I don't even know if you like black people for real. You might be one of them. I said, no, I'm not one of them. I'm just, I'm at work and I don't want to, I'm just at work. And she turns out to be, she cool as hell, of course. She don't really bother nobody but her damn self and me when she feel like it. And I've noticed how she wants it to get out of this particular job and how she wanted to get out of it. And I watched her, do it. And it's always cool to watch somebody achieve the things they say they're going to do. It's always cool to watch somebody's process. With Jamil, I love Jamil. That's really my brother from another state. If it wasn't for him, it'd be a different story with me. So when I met Jamil, he was coming from Cleveland, of course, to Michigan for it was a book fair. Book fairs are, in layman's terms, book fairs are vendor shows where every vendor sells books. I was interviewing and kind of had a business relationship with someone from my neighborhood who had wrote a book, and they knew Jamil. And the one thing about writing these stories and putting it out there as the writer, you don't get a lot of feedback and praise for it. So if I can write an article about this microphone and somebody gonna say, man, that's a great microphone, nobody's going to say that was a great article about the microphone. And the individual posted the article that I wrote about him, and every probably 50 comments. Great article. You so great. You so nice. I love you. I love you. I love you. And Jamil commented and said, like, bro, that was a good article. That was some good writing right there. I'm like, well, that's the first. Like, I've never been complimented on the article itself. I just watch everybody else be praised off of it. And that just really made me, okay, he know what he's talking about. And he had a writer's workshop in Cleveland one day, and I was driving my little Ford Focus, and I hopped on my Focus and drove to Cleveland and really learned a lot about independent publishing from that event. And like I said, it changed me. It helped me figure out things from my first book. It helped me solidify my own talents and skills as a writer. With T Barb is another person that is a very important person to me. I met T Barb on set. I was working. Shout out to Hatari Jumbi. I was working with Hatari, and my stepkids was the name of that show. Maybe I was operating the camera or doing some production work on it, and T Barb came in because she had a role, and she was, in that early part of her process. And I seen her, she seen me regularly, networking and conversating. I'll take my number now, and I hit you up when we can figure something, we can work together. And I went from there to taking pictures with her, taking pictures for her, um, going to her shows, and just she let me hang out and stick around. And in 2018, T Barb and Danny Redwine took me and my boy to the Homegirls tour. And it was really essentially, she called me in the middle of the night and said, "What are y'all doing this weekend? We driving down to Georgia because we got this tour. Can you and your man, well, can you roll?" And then I called my mans and said, "Can you roll?" And he said, "Yeah." And T Bar, pulled up, and I was, this 2018, so I was maybe 23, 24. We'll fact check that later. But I was a young adult, still staying with my mom, working and whatnot. And my mom was like, "You're not gonna go out of town with this random lady. I don't know this random lady. Like, I'm not about to let you, you might be a grown ass man and whatever, but you still, right now living in with me, and you still my son. You're not gonna just go out of town with this lady." So T Barb came into the house in the middle of the night and talked to my mom, and my mom loved her from there. And my mom asked about her all the time, and we went down to Georgia. We drove. We kind of took shifts, but my shift, it was just me driving. Um, and it was great. I got to be on the road. I got to see how things work a little bit, even if it's at that independent level where she was kind of booking her own stuff and really handling a lot of her own business. And I was like a privilege to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've already said so many things that I want to segue from or elaborate from. You can take a little sip of your water if you need to. I know you've been talking a lot, so I appreciate you sharing so openly, even though normally you're on the other side of the whole situation. Well, let's first talk about, you mentioned independent publishing, and I know that you have a couple books out. And if you want to share a little bit about that process, that would be very, very welcome. I'm sure not a whole lot of people are familiar with what it looks like as an independent writer to self-publish.
That's another thing that all started from some little nugget of journalism. I was doing book reviews. So once maybe my junior, sophomore year of college, I just started reading again. Like, I was reading like a lot of books. Like I don't haven't read that many books since that younger era of my life. And I was doing book reviews and interviews and interviews and interviews. And I was like, hey, I had written a short story, and maybe like it was a pilot script when I was in college. So I knew I had the ability to tell a story. I just haven't yet. But I was telling stories on everybody else, and I'm like, hey, these books are pretty good. Some can be better than others, but it's just my job to report the book and the person. And I was just like, when I do it, I have to do it right. So I took all of those skills and experiences from talking to these other people and writing about these other people, which is really what I was kind of doing, was picking information from their brain so I can use it for myself. If you interview 10 authors and you want to be an author, you're going to get some information. You're going to get 10 different pieces of information from those 10 people. And I put it all together, and I guess it's something like rappers and those type of deals. I knew I wasn't going to get just like a fly publishing deal off the top. Because let's just be honest, it's just not how it works. And I wanted to, I always wanted to be a script writer and in that type of business. And I always figured from writing scripts, same thing. You can have the greatest script in the world. Whatever God you believe in themselves might approve it, but that's not going to matter. To the people who's going to pay you the money you want to be paid, they're going to say, who the hell is this guy? And I'm like, hey, I can write these short story books or these books in general to kind of fluff all of that up so everything can be looked at the same time. And at that point in time, I've sent scripts out to different places, different contests and companies. Almost never getting anything back. Just the rejection letters, which is part of the game. And so something has to give. So I have to build these bones here, telling stories and writing books this way, and maybe it can pick up. And so Books in the Hood LLC is my publishing company, which is essentially me publishing my own books on Amazon. I have helped a few other people minorly. Anybody can call me. I give them the advice that I can give them. I haven't necessarily published anybody's book yet. It's
Are
just,
you interested
of
in
course,
publishing?
of course, I get people who say they want it. I don't want to say it like that. People, um, it's not a lot of follow through. And that's nobody's fault. Everybody's busy. I can't pay nobody. And this is all something. At the end of the day, we all want. It's not about the money per se, but we all want to make a decent living, in whatever it is that we put our time in. Nobody wants to spend 4 or 5 years, give or take, writing a book and then it goes nowhere. There's other things to go into that, but that concept scares a lot of people, and that's where the independent publishing came from. Is just me using that to segue my own writing resume.
Okay. And so now you've built up your resume a bit. Any shout outs you want to make for the books that you already have out or where people can find them?
Yes, my first book is called Book Zero. A very simple short story book that is kind of complicated at the same time. It's a very quick read. It's about 100 pages. Really like definitely a project of passion. I was a different person in that moment, and it came before I wrote those stories before. No, I finished my second book before the first book, but I was waiting on different things from different people, and I wasn't going to keep waiting without producing anything in that process. So in the middle of that writing process, the stories from Book Zero came out, and I was able to kind of just weave that into a narrative with those second stories from the hip and critical mixtape book, African American Horror Stories, which is a bigger, kind of more beefed up version of Book Zero. The characters are a little bit older, the themes are a little scarier, but I don't market that one too much. You can still buy it on Amazon if you want. I just didn't. The motives and the heart and the mind state was a little different around that time when that one came out. I rushed it, and I had too much pride to pause the release date to work on it like I should have. Like I should have paused it, and my bad, y'all. Give me some time. But I had certain intentions and things I wanted to do, so I cut it real quick so I can get that money and enjoy that moment for that moment.
Well, I can definitely say that I enjoyed Book Zero. I did read that, though I've not been able to get my hands on the second book, Hip and Critical. So I would recommend anyone out there who's into I don't know. I guess I'm going to ask you what you would label it, but first I'm going to attempt to label it myself. I would call it like a sci-fi realism, like a black, like an urban sci-fi realism is how it came across to me. Book Zero. What would
Okay.
you? How would you actually describe it as the writer?
I call them historical horror fiction.
Okay.
So that's how I put it. I've never heard that be genred. If it's genred after this podcast is released, y'all owe me some money, and we'll talk about that. But that's what I call it. There's a lot of pieces of history. I said us, we're black people in America, so American history is very rooted into our experience as black people. For obvious reasons, y'all can fact check them on your own. And it's scary to be black, and it's scary to be alive in general. And I mix those things together to to have fun writing those stories and to have fun really bothering people with those scary stories.
Okay. So it sounds like maybe some of your motivation behind the book was being a troll.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but I really wanted to make people uncomfortable. That was my plan. But I wanted to drag people through a lot of emotions in one setting. Because they said book zero is 90 pages, and you gonna laugh, you might cry, you might feel disturbed. I had somebody text me and say, "Yeah, look, my girl don't want to do it no more because she read the first story in your book. Like she was good, and then she read this, and now she's not in the mood no more." I said, "My bad, bro. The formula works, but my bad."
Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. I can say that there were parts I was like, I'm definitely a little bit disturbed, but it was good writing and it really drew you in a short period of time. So shout out to you. Um, I wanted to segue back to something that you were mentioning about your journey. You had the photography journey, you've had your writing journey, and we know that upcoming, you're going to be doing more videos and things like that. Is that what's exciting for you right now? Like, what are you most passionate about as an artist in this time?
It'll ultimately end back to telling a good story. Um, right now, I'm still mastering what I've been doing. Excuse me. News journalism, writing in print media, which translates to blog writing, novels, short stories, comics. I have more of a grasp on those things. I would like to write a play. I would also like to make more adult material, if that makes any sense. Salacious, but not too. It's salacious. I would like to, make an erotic comic book or, write an erotic film, but it's not just eroticism. There's a story, there's a concept, there's character development, there's things that make you forget it's erotic because of these other elements.
So it sounds like you're more interested in showing like three dimensionality of people as opposed to, just a sexual being, just a person who creates art, but like what's behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, shout out to you telling the whole story.
That's the plan. So like I said, we are complex people, men, women, to all of us, no matter what privilege or bias we have and we move through the world with. Doesn't make anybody's story or situation any more or less complex than anybody else's. It's a billion people, 7 billion people in the world that are like 7 billion different stories to tell. So like you got to think about that. So how many people of that 7 billion are interested in whatever that's gonna be put out, and if they are, cool, that's great. If not, cool. But there's still more people to reach.
And well, you haven't mentioned this yet, but I do know from previous conversation that you recently attended a Trump rally
Amongst other things,
for your
yeah.
journalism work, and I'm curious. Would you be interested in telling someone's story from a place like that?
Yeah, of course. So for a little bit of context, just with us and the journalism, said me, Cliff Kelly, we try to be very fair journalists. We want to go everywhere. It's because it's the journalist job. It's also a privilege of a journalist to be able to tell people's story. So said most journalists can thumbs up this one, but being given access to certain spaces that the next person wouldn't be given access to because of your job. So me and Cliff seen Biden maybe a week or two before he dropped out the race. So it wasn't that long after we seen him that he dropped out. That was cool. As far as a journalist go, it was cool. We got our story. I took my pictures. He interviewed the people. It was fine. Um, I didn't get a chance to see Kamala when she was here because I interviewed Taniqua that night. So while me and Taniqua were driving back, we ended up driving past the aftermath of it. And so, but Cliff managed to catch that one. And, that was a while ago, at least considered to this day, a few months back. And we were just like, you know what? We have to see everybody. Like, we can't, call ourselves honest journalists and only hound one side of the story. We got to figure everything out. So even with that being said, we end up seeing Maxine Waters. Throughout this journey, me and Cliff did. We got a couple pictures with her, so he got to interview her. He got to ask her a pretty good question that she enjoyed. So it just came there like, no, now we got to figure out when Trump gonna be here because we got to go see Trump. And head at the jobs, he messed with me every day. Me and him talked the political talk. He said, your boy gonna be in town on Friday. I'm like, oh, really? I didn't know because, as far as our experiences with the Biden Harris campaigns, their media people reach out a little bit more, at least, to us in our experience. Nobody from Trump's camp has, reached out to us or Miss Gina, to say, Trump's in town, here are our media opportunities. So we had to find it on our own. Trump was at Macomb Community College, and me and Kelly went to go see. We attempted to see him. We got there about 6, and of course, if they say he goes on at 6, he's not going to go on at 6. There's a schedule to these things, and it doesn't happen on time, or the timeline they set, it just doesn't happen that way. So we ended up, you know, going there, and we're seeing a lot of, as we're walking towards it, we're seeing a lot of people walk out, and they say ain't nobody getting in, nobody's getting in. They shut the doors a long time ago. So I guess if you didn't get there by 3, 4, you wasn't getting in.
Oh, so people were camping out.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, people were camping out. So I said the thing about crowd sizes is a myth. I can fact check that one personally here. And there was a lot of people there. Honestly, a big vendor show. There was a bunch of Trump merch being sold. I'll save that opinion for my potential political episode. But they were there buying merch. There was a few black people sprinkled in. Luckily for us, as people and as journalists, everybody we talked to had a very fair answer. It wasn't just immigrants and the economy. The answers the media have given you to expect from certain Trump supporters. They were very fair answers, very balanced answers, and it ultimately ends to the people wanting to feel cared about by whoever the president is. And at the end of the day, you can't knock anybody for wanting to feel that way. We met most of the black people that were there were honestly like, yeah, we just here because we selling merch. They was honestly said we don't have a specific political stance, which is fair. I also believe that what comes with the right to vote, what comes with the right to vote comes with the right not to vote. What comes with the right to do anything comes with the right to not do anything. And if that's your stance, that's fine and fair. I won't bug nobody about that. And they said, I don't care. I'm making money regardless. I still got to feed my family or whatever the case may be. Go and get your money, bro. Um, we, the one black dude we talked to that kind of, was kind of set on Trump, and he had his, his opinions, and, from wherever he pieced his information from, he did end it with, well, my family don't even mess with me like that. Whatever. Hilarious,
So be it.
so be it. We just moving on. Like, but I appreciate bro for even talking to us. And, he asked us. He said he didn't want to be recorded or anything like that. But we still chopped it up, and that was cool. And the last guy we talked to, he was an old black man, and he essentially said that he rents out the chairs at the rallies. And he been doing this since 2000, the first time Trump ran. 150 chairs for $20 or something like that, or whatever the equation was. He made 3 bands in that moment, that rally. And Unc said, you know, I'm a feed myself with it. I can't be mad at nobody for that. And this wasn't a regular Unc. This was drunk Unc. And drunk Unc gave us $50, like, or just off the strength that he made this money. He ended up giving us some money. And what he said was, and I quote, "I'm giving the money that I took." He said, "If I took 100, me giving y'all 50, that works for me." I'm not finna argue with you, Unc. And it worked out. It wasn't bad. Like I said, it wasn't. I know it could have been worse from what you have seen, throughout the media before. But speaking from myself and Kelly's experience, we didn't get hassled or harassed.
From the outside.
Yeah, from the
Yeah, 'cause
outside,
you
yeah.
weren't able to.
So I can't speak of what happened on the inside because we didn't make it. But as far as the outside, it was a good time. As far as us being journalists, we knocked that off our list.
All right. Well, can't argue with that. Cheers to your journalistic integrity. And I'm wondering, because it is about time to wrap it up here, is there any little nugget that you want to leave with the people? Anything that you want to say about life is a beautiful thing, or how people can reach out to you to learn more about your work?
Yes. Be prepared for Life's a Beautiful Thing to merge with a lot of different networks and different shows. I plan to have a small podcast network where I can do more executive things for other people, because I have seen a lot of people out and about who genuinely want to start a podcast that isn't, the rage bait and engagement material. So just don't always expect to see my face. I might not always be here on Life's a Beautiful Thing. You might see me somewhere else. I want to also thank everybody ahead of time for checking it out and even being interested. I'm getting a lot of people already telling me they can't wait, and I appreciate that. Those type of things keep me motivated to do it. And be prepared for a lot of people, different people for me to talk to. Like, be prepared for some real journalism. Be prepared for some real questions to be asked. The people we get, the better this do, the better quality or eyes that the people on here get. So just be prepared for real people to be asked real things. And you can find me at YouTube. The YouTube channel is simply Life's a Beautiful Thing. I'm working on it now. Still going through these editing processes. Once everything is done, it'll get sorted out. You can find me on Instagram at Xavier XAVIER underscore JUAN51. You can find me on Facebook simply at Xavier Jones. You can find me on TikTok, which I don't really use too much. I'm working on it at Detroit Anime Den. That's about it. I also want to shout out to Dave and Jay here at my Play Studios. Those my guys. I sent them nope, they had an application up on Indeed. I filled it out. They hit me up the next day, and we chopped it up, and we here now. So if y'all ever need anything, let me know. I want to continue this partnership we got. Yeah, because I see how everybody can eat. I'm proud of y'all. How y'all, I don't want to use the phrase stepped it up. How y'all upgraded. Like I like y'all process. Like this is all a process. And now when I got here, they was like, yeah, we just getting started, but we gonna figure it out. And it's good to see how they figured it out. So shout out to them. Appreciate y'all guys. Shout out to Dean Beans. Dean did my first 2 episodes with T-Barb and Jamil at his studio. Shit happened, so I ended up coming over here. But Dean is definitely for my 2 times working with him. Dean know what he doing. So if y'all do, we not hating on nobody over here. We not gatekeeping nothing. So if you want to link up with Dean and work on him, cool. You gonna get some good work. You gonna come down over here with Dave and Jay, fine. Come on. Just know you gonna get you some good work in.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to interview you today and sharpen up my skills. Thank you for having me on. And I guess, I don't know if you close this with a specific thing, but go out and have a beautiful life.
Have a beautiful life, y'all, and have a beautiful night.